Welcome to the EOB Podcast, where we talk about the weekend box office and the new openings this week. Unfortunately, Sen won't be joining us this week, so it's just going to be you and me again. But since I'm doing this on a Tuesday, we can actually get the actual figures. Last weekend, we have 3 wide releases. First and most obvious one, or the biggest movie of last weekend, was the movie Justice League. It's kind of like the DC Warner Brothers version of the Avengers, where they have these all their top line superheroes teaming up together for just one movie. And then we have the heartwarming drama called Wonder, which stars Julia Roberts and Owen Wilson. And then there is the animation, Sony animation, The Star. So we'll see how this movie did at the box office over the weekend. So let's get started. Coming in number 1, no surprise, is Justice League. It pulled in about 94 million over the weekend, which is a drop off from the opening of the previous movie, like Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman had a 103 million opening. The one previous to that, is it Suicide Squad? Suicide Squad had a 133 million opening, and then there was the Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice movie, which is the 2 headline characters in the DC WB universe. That one opened the best of them all, and opened to 166 million. But this Justice League, which is kind of like the team up, DC WB version of the Avengers, it only managed to open to 93 million, and that is the lowest opening in the DC universe. Even Man of Steel, the 2013 movie, opened to 116 million. Following that, it was Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice, 166 million, because it was hyped up. Batman and Superman, 2 top level characters in the DC Warner Brothers universe, comic book universe, right? That pulled in 166 million. Following that, it was Suicide Squad, like a ragtag team of who knows what, unless you're into these comic books, you don't know who these characters are. And that movie was anchored by Will Smith, and that one opened to 133 million. And then Wonder Woman surprises everybody because it stars a relative unknown, Gal Gadot, as the title character. It was very well reviewed. Even though it opened to 103 million, it went on to be the top grossing movie domestically in the DC universe with 412 million, and then followed by Batman vs Superman, 330 million. So long distance between Wonder Woman and Batman vs Superman. This is just Wonder Woman, right? Even though she's one of the pillars of in the DC Warner Brothers superhero universe, she is not bigger than Batman. She's not bigger than Superman, but her movie is actually better. It grows more than other respective characters. So Justice League, this was the big team up, the anticipated movie where every other solo movie leads up to, right? But it only pulled in 93.8 million, roughly 94 million. So Warner Bros. Has to be concerned about this performance of only 93 million, right? And this movie obviously is gonna cost probably over 200 million. And then there's the advertisement, and also it's a costly movie for Warner Brothers. Overseas, it's a little bit better. Overseas, it managed to put in 185 million for a total of 278 million. Let's see, the China figure is about 51 million so far. At least that's the data on Box Office Mojo. On a long-term basis, will this movie gross enough to cover the cost? I mean, the DC cinematic universe pretty much came together kind of in a slapdash way. We have the Marvel ones. Marvel planned their movies years in advance, maybe 20 movies or so in advance. DC, seeing the success of the Marvel movies after the Man of Steel, just kind of like, okay, we're going to release these movies. And they have these Untitled movies. They don't know what movies or in what order they're going to what they will release. Maybe they know, maybe some know, but there was really no solid plan, I believe. And they just have these Untitled movies in the pipeline that's unannounced. I mean, Aquaman obviously was one that's going to be released December next year. And Wonder Woman has solidified itself because it was successful, very successful. the most successful movie in the DC movie universe, right? I mean, worldwide basis, Batman versus Superman is still better, but still domestically, but not by much. But domestically, Wonder Woman, is a lot better than Batman versus Superman. That character has a movie going on, has a sequel. Wonder Woman 2 coming out in November 1st, 2019. Other than that, we don't have any other movies that are titled. Assuming we're going to get a Cyborg spinoff, we're going to get a Flash spinoff for a solo movie, then we're going to have the Batman movies, right? And then more Superman movies. Other than Aquaman and Wonder Woman 2, we don't know the order that the other characters are coming along. And Justice League, 94 million domestic is very concerning to Warner Brothers, concerning to I guess fans. Remember, we say that the DC / Warner Brother comic book movies are pretty much poorly reviewed, with the exception of Wonder Woman. They're all pretty much poorly reviewed, and you can only go on so much. Audience can only give you so much chances before they kind of turn away from you, from the DC movies. Justice League was previously directed by Zack Snyder, and because of personal tragedy, concerning his deceased daughter, the movie final edit was overtaken by Josh Whedon, he of the Avengers fame. He is also scheduled to direct a Batgirl movie or something like that for Warner Brothers as well. Him, remember him? He said that he's done with superhero movies. He's back for Warner Brothers, and he has a history with Warner Brothers with the Buffy TV shows and the Angel TV shows, right? TV series. So, Josh Whedon and Warner Brothers has a history going, and he came back to the studio who gave him his start, really, I guess, to take over pretty much right now, depending on how Zack Snyder recovers, I guess, with this cinematic universe, and maybe going forward that could be a good thing. Zack Snyder has his own style for his vision, I guess, of the DC universe. He kind of aped Chris Nolan's Batman movies. It's kind of like dark and gritty, and the criticism of Man of Steel, Dawn of Justice, etc. Those characters, like Superman, for example, we talked about in the previous podcast that, his character is like optimistic, cheerful, hopeful. But to make him, like a Batman, probably is not the way to go. Batman vs. Superman kind of took on the same, grittiness, dark. And that one, even though it made a lot of money, right? I guess the hype of that movie, I propelled it to a very high box office domestically and overseas. And Suicide Squad was a surprise, but that one, the reviews weren't good as well. All that, with the exception of Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, directed by Patty Jenkins. She made the world more colorful, more light. So it's kind of different from Zack Snyder's vision of dark and gritty for the superhero universe and for DC and Warner Bros. Comic book movies, which is a departure, kind of like a breath of fresh air. People are allowed to relax. But with Justice League, I guess it still kind of followed the Zack Snyder's vision for the most part, even though it was taken over by Josh Whedon, final edit, right? But I guess for the most part, he kind of kept Snyder's vision of where he want to go with this series. So 93 million, even though still huge, I expect a huge drop in the second weekend. Word of mouth is probably not gonna be good for this movie. Let's see how the review wise. Only 39% tomato meter the last time I checked on Rotten Tomatoes. B plus cinema score, which is kind of like average movie. People think this okay movie. We've seen the disconnect before between reviews and box office, but with this one, with such a low opening, that meaning that the audience is maybe starting to turn away from the DC stuff. But we'll see. This is just one movie, and like I say, it's really concerning for Warner Bros. And the DC comic book universe, because this is their Avenger movie. This is their big team up. This is the movie that ties everything together. And Superman is not in this movie, I guess, for the most part. And I guess Batman and Wonder Woman and the other characters, are not able to pull in all the other stuff. Maybe Henry Cavill's Superman plays a lot, but we don't know, right? Because they can only get so many passes. Remember, even though the reviews were bad, people still turn out for the other movies, and maybe the disappointment of those movies have finally caught up to the Warner Brother DC superhero movies. We don't know, right? But we'll have to keep an eye out for the next movie, which is Aquaman, which is coming next year, December 18. And there's another one, DC film, that's scheduled for July 2018. That's Untitled, so we don't know what that movie is. We don't know. It should be filming right now. So 93 or 94 million box office, domestic box office for Justice League is not good and very concerning. And we said that before previously, that these reviews are gonna finally catch up to the DC slash Warner Brother comic book movies, and I guess it did. But one movie might be an outlier, right? But it's something to be aware of. Okay, let's move on to number 2 at the box office over the weekend, and it's the surprise movie, I feel, of last weekend. It's Wonder, a movie Wonder, heartwarming drama about a kid who has some facial deformities due to some surgery, and he has to learn to accept himself, and for his classmates to accept him as well. Stars Julia Roberts and Owen Wilson as his parents. This movie pulled in $27.5 million over the weekend, which is way more than what I expect this movie to pull. I thought this movie could only open to about 10 million, but surprised me. It's very well reviewed, 84% on Rotten Tomatoes, and an A+ cinema score. So very well reviewed, heartwarming. I thought that Justice League's gonna open huge. I thought Justice League's gonna open to maybe 160 million, but hey, it did way worse than the 60 million. So that means it has room for the other movies to breathe, meaning that other movies have a chance for that piece of the box office that's left on the table by Justice League. And Wonder benefited from that. It grossed 27.5 million, so which is way better than the 10 million I thought that it would open to. Heartwarming, a tale during holiday season. I thought, hey, people might want to watch the superhero movies, or that there might be more than those movies on TV or whatever, right? And but apparently this one for some reason struck a chord with audience to a tune of 27.5 million. So hey, good going there. So I was wrong about this one. Let's move on to number 3 is Thor Ragnarok. It put in 21.7 million in its third weekend, a 62% drop off from the previous weekend. It opened huge, right? It opened to about 122 million, and right now the domestic gross is 247 million. Worldwide take is 739 million. Right now, Thor Ragnarok, is the top Thor movie. Third time's the charm, right? It's the top Thor movie, just ahead of Dark World, right? And then worldwide, it's still the top movie. Thor: The Dark World made 644 worldwide. Right now, Thor Ragnarok, still early in its release, or it has already made 739 million. So I think it's still going. So yeah. Thor, the movie that's feature a lot of action with team up with the Hulk, kicking butt. This movie is doing very well at the box office, even despite the huge drop off. All right, number 4 is Daddy's Home 2, the comedy with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell. In the second weekend, dropped about 51%, pulled in 14.4 million over the weekend. 50 million domestic so far, and let's see, is it released worldwide? Yeah, released in some territories worldwide, overseas, but kind of insignificant right now. So worldwide figure is still about 50 million. So yeah, this comedy garnered a sequel, and the budget is about 69 million. So the first Daddy's Home opened to 38 million. The second Daddy's Home opened to about 29 million, so which is about roughly 10 million difference from there. So it looks like Daddy's Home is gonna make less than the first movie. But we'll see how the movie does overseas. If it does well, we're gonna see more Daddy's Home. All right, number 5 is Murder on the Orient Express, a new adaptation of the novel. Let's see, it pulled in about 13.8 million over the weekend, about 52% drop off from its opening weekend. Domestic gross so far is about 51.7 million. Budget is 55 million, and let's see, worldwide so far is 148 million. So, and it's doing well overseas. It's doing okay here. This movie surprised me. I thought it would only open to 15 million, but it opened to 28 million, nearly 30 million. Nearly doubling my opening projections. And this movie stars a lot of people. They threw stars at this movie, and this one seems to work. Especially at the overseas market, right? About 52 million domestic so far, but overseas 96 million. So stars work sometimes, and this one it seems to work well. All right, moving along to number 6 at the box office, weekend box office, is Sony's animation, The Star. In this promo, it said it's from the people who make Cloudy with a Chance of Meatball, those movies. Animation about the birth of Jesus Christ. From the perspective of the animals like donkeys and the camels and others. It opened to about 9.8 million. I thought it could do better, but not. I thought it could open to 25 to 30 million, but no. Let's see. Review-wise, it's 61% at Rotten Tomatoes and A cinema score, so it's kind of okay reviewed, but I guess people wasn't that interested in another nativity tale, Birth of Jesus Christ. I guess this one is kind of a rare miss for Sony Animation, but hey, the budget is only at 20 million, so it's gonna probably pull in that much if it stays in theater over the weekend. This movie with the subject matter is really a holiday movie. Take advantage of the holiday season, right? So it could be leggy. Kind of fresh on review wise. 61% A cinema score, so it might find an audience later on. It might not open well, but hey, might find an audience later on. But there's a competition from Pixar, Coco, so we'll see if that movie affects this movie much. It probably will. All right, moving to number 7 is a Bad Moms Christmas. It pulled in 7 million over the weekend in its third weekend. Drop off is 39% from its previous weekend. Hey, drop off is low. That means it's going to be leggy, but it didn't make as much as the first movie. Domestic gross so far is 51 million, but just only 28. The first movie was a surprise. We opened to 23 million and went on to make 113 million domestic, and worldwide it did well as well. Worldwide 183 million, 70 million of that from overseas market. Bad Moms Christmas, might not, reach the level of Bad Moms, but the budget is pretty low. Budget is 28 million, so it's going to be another modest hit. So we might see more Bad Mom movies. And number 8, moving along, is Lady Bird. Pulled in about 2.5 million in its third weekend expansion. Movie stars Saoirse Ronan, directed by Greta Gerwig. I believe it's well reviewed, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty rare. And it's getting an audience. It's finding this audience in theaters, even though it doesn't make as much money as the other big movies, but it's not supposed to. This is one of those prestige films, and 4.7 million domestic so far. This movie might get some awards during the award season. All right, number 9 is a movie that popped up in the top 10. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, from Fox Searchlight Pictures. It is in the second weekend of release, pulled in about 1.1 million. It added additional theaters. I don't know much about this movie, so I'll leave it at that. It's probably a drama. It stars Woody Harrelson, Sam Rockwell, Abby Cornish, Peter Dinklage, John Hawkes, Frances McDormand. So a lot of very good actors. Directed by Martin McDonald. So hey, could be one of those movies that is an actor movie. It's gonna probably up for some awards maybe, but hey, it's one of these minor theaters for the mature audience, people who are into dramas. And there it goes. Oh, 3 Billboards. Oh, yeah, I heard about this movie. I think Frances McDormand stars as a mother whose daughter got murdered, and she took out some advertisement on the billboard, chastising the people who are supposed to investigate her daughter's murder, and she rub people the wrong way in that town. Okay, her billboards. So there's that. I've heard good things about it. All right, let's move on to number 10, Jigsaw. I put in about 1 million over the weekend. It's the fourth weekend already, so it looks like it's going to drop out the top 10 soon. It pulled in about 36 million, but hey, the budget's only 10 million, so it's already made money for Lionsgate. Worldwide, it pulled in 89 million, nearly 90 million. So yeah, we're going to see more Jigsaw movies. Based on this character, they decided to make a movie that's focused on him, I believe, and now they are rewarded with this franchise-saving movie. So more Jigsaw movies or more Saw movies coming along. All right, that rounds out the top 10. How about we move on to the new releases? We have 2 new releases, with one expanding. Since this is the week of Thanksgiving, the movies are going to be released on the 22nd, which is tomorrow. I'm doing this on November 21st. So tomorrow we're going to have these new releases just before the Thanksgiving holidays. So we have the new Disney animation, Coco, takes place in Mexico, about Day of the Dead and all that. The characters got one of these, I think, guitar or something like that. He plays his music and is able to enter, this world. And then the expanding is Roman J. Israel. This is going to be in his second weekend of expansion. Stars Denzel Washington and Colin Farrell. Directed by Dan Gilroy, who did Nightcrawler. And it's a promo. It's from the director of Nightcrawler, that Jake Gyllenhaal movie did decent. How about we start off with Coco? So it opened in Mexico already. It did really well there. It pulled in for about 49 million there, and it's gonna release elsewhere, probably this week. So Coco, Moana was released around the same time last year. It was around Thanksgiving time. And Coco is similar to Moana because it's not based on a previous movie. It's not a sequel. It's kind of entirely new, original IP from Pixar. In that sense, it's kind of like Moana, right? And it's based on a culture, I guess, that is not that familiar to, like Moana is based on a culture that's not that familiar to the audience here. So, in comparison to Moana, that movie had an 82 million opening. On Thanksgiving Day, it opened to 15 million, 56 million 3 days, 82 million 5 days. So I believe the movie Coco is going to be similar. I think it's going to do 70 to 75 million 5 days and about 50 million 3 days. I don't think the Mexican culture, even though we have a lot of Latino background here, I think Coco is probably going to open less than Moana and make less than Moana as well. So 50 million 3 days, 70 to 75 million 5 days. All right, let's move on to the expansion movie, Roman J. Israel, ESQ. He's a lawyer. Denzel Washington stars as a lawyer, activist lawyer, who got pulled into some seedy stuff. And he put on some weight for this role. Colin Farrell is in this movie as well. I believe this movie is kind of like similar to the Jake Gyllenhaal's Nightcrawler as well, since it's directed by the same people. But hey, this is Denzel Washington. He has his fans. I believe this movie is gonna probably pull in, maybe 35 million 5 days and 25 million 3 days. Denzel Washington still can pull in the crowd, especially for a thriller like this, and it's kind of like his other movies too, like what's that movie, The Equalizer. The Equalizer did well, opened to 34 million, pulled in 101 million. But since Roman Israel is not that movie, not an action movie, it's gonna do a little bit less, and it's not opening in that many theaters as well, 1,500 theaters. I wouldn't be surprised if it make less, since hey, there's some it's other, we still have some, the Justice League movies in theaters and others, but hey, it could do that well. Okay, so that's it for this podcast. Have a safe and wonderful Thanksgiving, and see you next time. Bye bye.